Hello and welcome. I'm Gillian Cameron, and I've been doing this for just about a month now and enjoying every minute of it. This is Mythcongeniality, and it is my program each Sunday night of stories from folklore and mythology and etc. So tonight is called Three Goddess Tales. I want to say first off that I am a little nervous about telling these stories because I know I have friends that know them by heart. I don't know if I'll be able to get all the details in, but that's the nature of telling stories as opposed to reading them. And that's how folklore happens. Somebody will tell a story, and it's like the old telephone game. One person will remember this detail, this detail, this detail. Another person will add details. And so there are many different variations of these stories. One is one of the oldest stories written down. And that's what I'm going to begin with, which is the story of Inanna's journey to the Underworld. Inanna was a goddess of love and a goddess of war. She was a queen, and she was her own priestess in the city of Uruk, in the city of Bad Tibritha, in Zabalan, in Adab, Nippur, Kish, and Akkad. The husband of her sister Ereshkigal, the goddess of the dead, had died, and she knew it was incumbent upon her to go to her sister's kingdom and partake in the funeral. But her sister hated her, but that could not be helped. She left her temple in Uruk. She left her temple in Bad Tibira. She left her temple in Zabalan. She left her temple in Adad. She left her temple in Nippur. She left her temple in Kish. She left her temple in Akkad. She took unto herself the May. The May were the symbols of her power. The May were the objects that she had won from her father, Enki, in a game. Through her cleverness, through her wisdom, she won them from the god of wisdom. And she put upon her head the shagura, the crown of the steppe. Around her neck, she placed the small necklace of lapis beads. Across her breast, the long necklace of lapis beads. She put upon herself her royal robe, and she daubed her eyes with an ointment that was called "Let him come, let him come." She put upon herself her breastplate, which was called "Come, man, come." She put the gold ring upon her wrist, and in the other hand, she took her lapis measuring wand and line, and she went to the underworld. Before she left this world, she said to her servant, her sukul, Ninshubur, I go to my sister's kingdom. I go unto her. If I am not back in 3 days, I want you to put on the clothes of a beggar. I want you to cover yourself with ashes. I want you to mourn for me. I want you to go to Nippur and go to my father Enlil and plead for me that I might be brought back to this world. If he does not agree, then go to Ur. Go to my father Inanna. Plead with him that I might be brought back to this world. If he does not agree, go to Eridu and go to my father Enki and plead with him. Enki has the water of life, and Enki has the food of life, and in his wisdom he will help me. Down then she went, down to the gates of her sister Ereshkigal's kingdom. And when she banged upon the gatekeeper, Neti, said, "Who are you, and what business do you have?" "I am Inanna. I come to my sister's kingdom. I must help to celebrate the funeral of her husband, the bull of heaven." "Wait there, Inanna. Wait there." And Neti went to his mistress, Ereshkigal, and he said, "There is a woman, a young woman, outside the gate, as tall as the trees she is, and she wears the 7 May. Upon her head is the Shigura, the crown of the steppes. Around her neck is the small necklace of lapis beads. Over her breast is the double strand of lapis beads. She wears upon herself the royal robe. She has daubed her eyes with the ointment called 'Let him come, let him come.' She wears the breastplate that is called 'Come, man, come.' A gold ring is upon her wrist, and in her hand she carries the lapis measuring rod and line. What is your wish?" Ereshkigal was furious, and she slapped her thigh, and she bit her lip, and she said, "Neti, go back to the gate. Open it a bit. And each of the gates of the underworld, open it a bit so that she might enter. But strip from her the May, that she might be before me, bowed down and humbled." And so Neti went back to the gate, and he opened it just a bit so that Inanna might enter. And as she entered the gate, the Shigura, the crown of the steppes, was taken from her head. "What is this?" she said. "The ways of the underworld are not to be questioned, Inanna. Be silent." As she went through the next gate, the string of lapis beads was taken from her neck. "What is this?" "The ways of the underworld are not to be questioned, Inanna. Be silent." As she went through the next gate, the double string of lapis beads was taken from her breast. "What is this?" "The ways of the underworld are not to be questioned, Inanna. Be silent." As she went through the next gate, the breastplate called "Come, man, come" was taken from her. "What is this?" "The ways of the underworld are not to be questioned, Inanna. Be silent." As she went through the next gate, the gold ring was taken from her wrist. "What is this?" "The ways of the underworld are not to be questioned, Inanna. Be silent." And as she went through the final gate, the lapis measuring rod and line were taken from her. "What is this?" "The ways of the underworld are not to be questioned, Inanna. Be silent." And so she was brought before Ereshkigal. And the Inanna the judges of the underworld surrounded her, and they beat her, and they stabbed her, and they drained her. And she was placed upon a hook and hung upon the wall, nothing more than a corpse. Ninshubur, faithful to her mistress, Ninshubur, the loyal Sukal, waited for her mistress, waited for her mistress. 3 days she waited for her mistress, and upon the 3rd day she put on beggar's clothes. She covered herself in ashes. She tore her hair and she tore her face, and she wept. And she went unto Nippur. And there she went to the temple of Enlil, and she said, "O Father Enlil, O Father, my mistress Inanna, is dead in the underworld. Do not let her be wasted. Do not let her be lost." Enlil said, "She went to the underworld of her own will. What she has done cannot be undone. Let her stay." Ninshubur then went to Nana in his temple, and she said, Father Nana, my mistress Inanna is dead in the underworld. Do not let her remain dead. Do not let her glory fade." And Nana said, Inanna went to the underworld of her own accord. What has happened in the underworld cannot be undone. She must stay. And Ninshubur went to Eridu, and she went to the temple of Enki. She said, "Father Enki, my mistress Inanna is dead in the underworld. Do not let her remain so." And Enki said, "What has she done? This was foolish of her." But he reached under his fingernail and he pulled out a bit of dirt. And with that dirt, he formed a being called a Kurgara that is neither male nor female. And to this Kurgara, he gave the water of life. And from under his other fingernail, he brought dirt and created a Galatur, another creature that is neither male nor female, and gave the Galatur the food of life. He said, Go to the kingdom of my daughter Ereshkigal. Take with you the water of life and the food of life. When you get there, Ereshkigal will be in the throes of childbirth. She will be in great pain and suffering. Go into her palace as flies upon the wall. Go and give her succor, and she will reward you." And so the Kurgara and the Galatur went down into the realm of Ereshkigal, and through the cracks in the doors they flew, and into the hall of Ereshkigal they flew, and there they saw their mistress hanging from a hook, a dead corpse. But Ereshkigal lay upon her couch. She had no linen to cover her. She lay in agony, and she said, Oh, my belly! Oh, my belly!" And the Kurgara and the Galatur said, "Oh, your belly." She said, Oh, my sides." And the Kurgara and the Galatur said, Oh, your sides." And the Rishkagal said, oh, my head. And the Kagara and the Galantura said, oh, your head. And the Rishkagal said, oh, my insides. And the Galantura and the Kagara said, oh, your insides. And when she heard these voices, she said, who are you? We are nothing. They said, we are made of clay. She said, you have shown me compassion. I will give you a gift. What is it that you would have? There is nothing that we would have except the body of your sister, Inanna, that hangs upon the hook. And so they were given the body. And the Kagara put the water of life into Inanna's mouth. And the Galator put the food of life into Inanna's mouth. And she stood, and she came back to life. But she was surrounded by the Gala. The Galas are the demons of the underworld. They take no food, they make no love, they have no desires. No one makes sacrifices to them. They only obey their queen. And they said, you may not leave this kingdom without a replacement. No one comes here, no life comes in without the life staying. Someone must take your place. She picked up the May, she put them on again, and she walked out with the Gala. And when they came forth from the underworld, they saw Ninshubur waiting for her mistress, and the Gala said, come, Ninshubur, come down into the underworld with us and take your mistress's place. And Inanna said, no, Ninshubur is my loyal friend. She wept for me. She mourned for me. She put on peasant's clothes and covered herself with ashes, and she pled for me. No, do not take Ninshubur. Come then, Inanna. We shall go. And they came to Umma, the town in which her son Shara lived. And they said, come, Shara, come, you will take your mother's place. And Inanna said, no, do not take Shara. Shara combs my hair. Shara files my nails. Shara helps me in my beauty. Do not take Shara. Then we shall go, said they. And they went to Bad Tabira, where her other son, Lubal, lived, Lulal. And they said, come, Lulal. Come, Lulal. Take your mother's place in the underworld. And Inanna said, no, Lulal is a great warrior. He protects my cities. Do not take him. Come then, Inanna. Come then to your city of Uruk. And they went to Uruk. And there, in the garden of the palace, sitting upon a throne, drinking honey and milk, they found her consort, Dumazil the shepherd. Dumazil, who was full of life and enjoying, and who had not mourned. And she said, take him. And the Gala laid hands upon him. But he pled to his brother-in-law, Utu, the god of justice. He said, Utu, you are my brother-in-law. I brought food to this land. I brought milk to this land. I brought peace to this land. Do not let them take me to the underworld. And Utu, he took Dumazil's hands and gave him the hands of a snake. He took Dumazil's legs and gave him the legs of a snake. And in the guise of a snake, Dumazil slithered off into the desert. And that is where this story ends. And that is Inanna's descent to the underworld. That and Gilgamesh are two of the most ancient stories we have written down on clay tablets that were not translated until the 1800s, as I understand. Bear with me. Queen Astarte of Byblos was amazed when her servant girl came to her with her hair braided in the most beautiful way and an aroma of sandalwood coming from her. And she said to her servant girl, How? You have no money. You have no maid. How has this come about that you should have your hair braided and that you should have this scent of sandalwood? And the servant girl, with a look of absolute blessedness upon her face, said, Your Highness, there is a woman who sits at the fountain in the square. Each of us who comes there to get water, she blesses us. She braids our hair. And when she touches us, she gives us the scent of sandalwood. Please, Your Majesty, come and see this wonder. And so Queen Astarte went to the fountain in the middle of the city. And there she saw a beautiful woman. She had the youth of eternity. She had the beauty that transcends humanity. And she radiated with holiness and beauty and kindness. And Queen Astarte said, Would you take a position at my palace? Would you be the nurse to my baby son? And the woman smiled as if she had known all along that she would be asked. And she became the nursemaid to the baby son of Queen Astarte and King Melkarthus. The baby loved her, and all in the palace, when they were in her presence, felt this radiation of love. And so it was with a great shock that Queen Astarte came down one night, in the middle of the night, into the great hall of the palace, and she saw this woman, her nursemaid, standing beside the great pillar of the palace, and then taking her baby and placing him in the fire, and then becoming a swallow and flying several times around the pillar. She let out a shriek, and the swallow once again took human form and very quickly took the baby out of the fire and gave him to her mother. And she said, what have you been doing?" "I sought to give you a gift. You have been so kind to me. I sought to give your child immortality. Had he but laid in the fire a few seconds more, he would have had it. But that is lost. But that is sorrow. Who are you?" And so it was that Isis, the goddess of the Nile, the queen of Upper and Lower Egypt, the consort of her brother Osiris, told her how she came to be in Byblos. They were the daughters and sons, these children, of Nut and the sun god Ra, all except for her, for she was the daughter of Thoth, the god of wisdom. Osiris's brother Set had ever a hatred for his brother Osiris. Set was a god of the underworld. He was a god of the earth. And Osiris was the king and the god of Upper and Lower Egypt. There was more. There was a time when Set's sister and wife, Nephthys, had slept with Osiris. He had thought that she was her sister, Isis. And a footnote, Joseph Campbell calls that inattention to detail. She gave birth to a boy with the head of a jackal, whose name was Anubis. And for this and many other reasons, Set hated his brother. Many were the times that he tried to destroy his brother Osiris. And one time seemed to have worked. He gathered all of his friends, those gods that were loyal to him, and he had a box made. It was beautiful, all inlaid with gold. And he said, "This box shall go to whoever can fit into it." And though many tried, none could fit until Osiris stepped forth. He stepped into the box. It fit perfectly. And the box was closed and sealed and thrown into the Nile. Isis searched, and she searched, and she searched. Up and down the Nile she searched. Until finally, at the very, very bottom of the Nile, the very top that we would say, where it met the great sea, she asked two children, "Have you seen a box?" And she described it. And they looked at her and they said, "There are stories of such a box. There are stories that it came to rest on this very bank, and it stayed for so long that a tree grew around it. And that tree was taken by King Melkarthus of Byblos, and it stands as the pillar of his great hall." And so it was that Isis went to Byblos. And now she had explained this to both Astarte and Melkarthus. And they said, "What can we do for you?" She said, "Let me take the box from out the pillar. It shall stay, the tree shall stay here as part of your palace, and forever shall it be blessed. But give me the box." And gladly they did. And it was with some aid that she took the box. She put it in a boat and went back to the Nile. And she brought that box onto an island in the middle of the river. And she opened it, and there lay her dead husband. But she remembered a bit of magic that was told her by her father, Thoth. And her arms became wings. And with those wings, she brought the breath of life into the body of Osiris. And soon enough, he opened his eyes and looked upon his wife with love. And they made love that night upon the island. And in the morning, Osiris was once more dead. She closed the box and hid it there upon the island. And she went off to another part of that country. And there she gave birth to a beautiful boy. And his name was Horus. And she nursed him, and she protected him. And there were many times that Set tried to kill him, but she thwarted every time. And Horus grew into a beautiful young child. But it wasn't much longer after that that word got to her that Set had been hunting on the river, and he had come to that island, and he had found the box with Osiris in it, and he had cut the body up into, some say 14, some say 16, some say 15 parts, and scattered those parts up and down the Nile. And so it was that Isis, with the help of Horus and Nephthys and Anubis, searched and searched, and they found all of the parts save one. The head of Osiris they found at Abydos, and to this day it has that name, which means the place of the head. But they could not find his member that had been eaten by a fish. They bound the pieces together and they buried Osiris. And then Horus said to his mother, "Come with me." He led his mother down to the other world. And there was the body of Osiris, sitting as a king in state. And Osiris and Horus took the eye from his head and placed it in the mouth of Osiris. And Osiris awoke, and he remained the king of the dead. And Isis and Nephthys are at his side, and Anubis judges the dead as they come in. But Isis cannot stay in the realm of the dead, for she is also Mat. She is balance. She is symmetry. She is justice. She is logic. And so she is in the underworld with her husband, and she is here amongst us. And I wonder, though he be the king, She is the active one, and she is the more powerful. There lived in Ulster a freeholder, a rich one, and a widower, and his name was Crulnach. And one day, Crulnach, who was missing his wife something awful, and so were the children themselves, thought he saw out of the corner of his eye a beautiful chestnut mare running, galloping toward his house. But when he went into the house, there was no horse. There was a beautiful woman with chestnut hair, and she was nursing the children, and she was making the porridge, and she was seeing to everything that the house needed. And she smiled at Crulnach, and he smiled back. And he said, well then, I have a goddess to wife, and she was his right arm from then on. And great respect they had for each other. She was no slave. That was her house, and that was her family, and she saw to their welfare. And it was not long before she started to show the signs that she was adding to the family. But it was in her 9th month that word came that there was to be a great horse fair in Ulster, and all the men were expected to come by the order of the king. And she said to her husband, Crulnach, do not go, do not go. You and I may not speak of who we are, of who I am. Do not go. I know that you will drink. I know that you will lose your lips. Do not go. And he said, my wife, I must go. This is for my king. And so he went. And indeed, he did have more of the creature than he should have. And so it was that at the highlight of the day, when there was to be a great race, the horses of the king were hitched to the chariot, and all and sundry marveled at them and said, did you ever see such horse flesh? Never at all in my life have I. Oh, that is amazing that those. And he said, you call that horse flesh? I've a woman at home. I've a wife at home. 9 months with child can run faster than those. It was idle bragging, though it was true. The king heard, and no sooner than one could think of it, there were men upon the road, and they were on their way to Crulnach's freehold, and there was a banging at the door. And the woman looked up, and she said, what would you have? We would have you. Your husband says that you can run faster than the king's horses, and now the king holds him for his bragging words. Well, that is nonsense. Let him go. I cannot run. You see that I'm in my 9th month. I'm very nearly come to bearing. Oh, well then, if you won't come, then he shall be executed. She said, very well then. And she dressed, and she took herself unto the place of the king. And the men of Ulster looked upon her, and they said, hey, look at her, there she is. And she's supposed to run faster. Look at her with that belly. She's going to run faster than the king's horses. This is going to be worth watching. The women of Ulster just looked in sadness. But the men of Ulster laughed, and they said snide remarks of her. And she stood before the king, and she said, King of Ulster, would you bring shame upon yourself and your country by making me run? Look at me. My time is nearly come. You have shamed me by bringing me here. Please do not make me do this. It would mean shame and a curse upon you. I will do this, or your bragging husband shall die. It shall be upon thy head, King of Ulster. The horses were brought out, and the flag was dropped, and the horses and the woman shot out across the line, and they ran as fast as they could, and the woman keeping up with them all the time, not just keeping up, but making it. She is running. She is 3, 4, 5 lengths ahead of them. She is running, and her belly is full. Her belly is keeping, and the pain is coming, and she, at the first curve, she gives a great howl that is heard in every corner of the land of Erin, and she falls upon her knees in pain, and the horses shoot by her, and then up she stands, and she begins to run again. The horses are 7 or 8 lengths ahead of her, but in no time she is ahead of them again, and she's at the far end of the field. But again that pain comes to her, and she down upon her knees, and again another great howl heard throughout all of Ireland, and then pulls herself back up, and with every bit of strength she runs, and soon enough she is ahead of the king's horses, and she is across the finish line, and with another great shriek of pain, down upon her knees she goes, in front of the king, in front of all the men and women of Ulster, and there in front of them all come forth a child, no, 2, and a midwife comes out from the crowd and helps her. And the 2 children, a boy and a girl, beautiful they are, though covered with the aftermath. She stands, and her blood is all down the front of her garment. She stands with her 2 barons in front of the King of Ulster, and she says, King of Ulster, do you know my name? My name is Macha. I am the daughter of the King of the Sea. I am the goddess of all horses. And you have brought shame upon me. But greater is the shame you've brought upon yourself. 3 great cries I have given out, and from now until 3 times that in generations shall the men of Ulster, in the time of Ulster's greatest need, lie in the same pains in which I have lain, and groan the same groans. That is my gift to you, King of Ulster. And she turned to Crunlach, and she put one child in one arm, and the other child in the other arm. And with a look of love, but of such grief and reproach, she turned and she walked. And with a blink, those there knew not whether they saw a woman walking away over the hills, or if they saw a beautiful chestnut mare galloping. But that place was known forever after as Ivan Macha, the twins of Macha. And many years after, when Ulster was invaded by the forces of Connacht, the men of Ulster lay in those pains, and none could fight for 9 days, except for one, for he was not of Ulster, and his name was Cuchulainn. And all of that is told in the great epic, the Táin Bó Cúailnge, the great cattle raid of Cooley, of which this story is just a small part. And there are 3 goddess stories. And I have more, and other stories as well. And I look forward to sharing them more with you next week. And if there are stories you would like to hear, please let me know. Wishing you health and wishing you joy.